The Galactic Senate chamber was dressed in its finest mourning colors, which, depending on which species you asked, ranged from depression purple to we're so sad we could almost care chartreuse. Approximately 300 senators from across the known galaxy had gathered for what was being called the most important session in the last millennium. They were here to officially declare humanity extinct, and oh, were they broken up about it. Absolutely devastated. You could practically hear the violin music. Or you could have, if anyone actually bothered to hire musicians for this farce. Senator Claxthor, a mantis-like creature from the Ordovian cluster, stood at the central podium adjusting his ceremonial sash for the 14th time. In his clawed appendages, he held the official Declaration of Species Extinction, form number GSC 4127E, revised edition, subsection Delta. Because nothing says solemn occasion quite like bureaucratic revision subsections. Esteemed colleagues, Claxthor began, his translator struggling to convey the appropriate level of fake sadness in his chittering voice, we gather here today to formally acknowledge the tragic, absolutely heartbreaking, and completely unavoidable extinction of the species known as Homo sapiens. A murmur of agreement rippled through the chamber. Several senators dabbed at their eye equivalents with tissues. The Gloraxian representative, who didn't actually have tear ducts, just sort of waved a damp cloth near his face hole. Points for effort, really. Let us take a moment, Claxthor continued, to reflect on humanity's contributions to galactic society. The moment of silence that followed was interrupted exactly 4 seconds in by Senator Vril, a blob-like creature from Methys 7, whose translator crackled to life. Does anyone remember what those contributions were exactly? They made decent coffee, offered Senator Tkora from the back. And they had those entertaining primitive wars we used to watch, added another voice. Claxthor's mandibles clicked in irritation. Please, colleagues. Decorum. He lifted the extinction stamp, an ornate device that had been used maybe 12 times in the entire history of the Galactic Senate. It was heavy, gold-plated, and completely unnecessary since everything was digital anyway. But tradition was tradition, and if you're going to erase a species from the official registry, you might as well do it with style. Does anyone have any final objections before we make this official? Claxthor asked, already lowering the stamp toward the document. The chamber remained silent except for what sounded suspiciously like someone popping a champagne bottle in the Zeltharian delegation section. Claxthor pretended not to notice. The stamp descended. 300 senators held their breath, not out of sadness, but because they really wanted this meeting to end before lunch. The stamp was millimeters from the paper when every door in the chamber simultaneously exploded inward with a sound that made several species question their life choices. The doors didn't just open. They didn't politely swing inward or even slam dramatically against the walls. No, they absolutely disintegrated in a shower of sparks and twisted metal, because apparently someone had forgotten to mention to humanity that making an entrance didn't require actual explosives. Through the smoke and debris walked a human woman who looked like she'd been personally fighting the heat death of the universe and winning, but just barely. Captain Vera Chen stopped just inside the chamber, surveyed the room full of shocked alien faces, and smiled the kind of smile that suggested she'd been saving up sarcasm for exactly this moment and was about to spend it all in one go. Well, she said, her voice carrying across the dead silent chamber with the kind of clarity that made several senators wish they'd called in sick today. I seem to have arrived just in time. Reports of humanity's death have been greatly exaggerated. Mark Twain said that. He was human. You might have remembered him if you'd bothered to check whether we were actually extinct before throwing yourselves this little party. The silence that followed was the kind of profound quiet that only occurs when several hundred beings simultaneously realize they've made a catastrophic mistake. Senator Vril made a sound like a deflating bagpipe and slid off his hover platform. The Zeltharian who'd been opening champagne choked so hard on his drink that his gills turned inside out. At least 3 senators from species with particularly sensitive nervous systems simply fainted on the spot. Vera took another step forward, and the assembled senators got their first good look at her. Her uniform, once the crisp navy blue of the Terran Defense Force, was now a patchwork of burns, tears, and what appeared to be 7 different species' blood. There was a coffee stain on her collar that looked about 3 weeks old. Her short black hair stuck up at angles that suggested she'd been too busy surviving to worry about grooming. A nasty scar ran from her left temple to her jaw, still pink and healing. She had dark circles under her eyes that could have their own orbital patterns, and she carried herself with that particular human posture that said, "I have been awake for 72 hours running on spite and caffeine, and I will absolutely make that everyone else's problem." But it was her eyes that really sold it. They had that special glint that every predator species in the galaxy recognized instinctively as, "This creature has hunted things that hunt hunters, and it's considering whether you're next." Senator Claxthor, still frozen with the extinction stamp hovering over the paperwork, managed to produce a sound somewhere between a squeak and a wheeze. At the head of the chamber, High Chancellor Bloopthar, a jellyfish-like being floating in a sophisticated mobility tank, began turning colors that didn't exist in his species' normal emotional spectrum. His translator struggled to keep up with his stuttering. But we saw the reports. Earth was, how are you? This is impossible." Vera's smile widened. Impossible? She pulled out a battered chair that one of the fainting senators had vacated and sat down backwards on it, arms crossed over the back. "Oh, Chancellor. That's adorable. Really? Has nobody in this entire galaxy learned the first rule about humans?" She paused for effect. "We specialize in impossible." Vera leaned back in her commandeered chair, looking entirely too comfortable for someone who'd just blown up the doors to the most important governmental building in the galaxy. "So let me tell you a story," she began, her voice dripping with the kind of sarcasm usually reserved for explaining basic concepts to particularly slow children. "It's called, How the Galactic Coalition Managed to Screw Up So Spectacularly That It Should Be Taught in Military Academies as a Case Study in What Not to Do." Several senators shifted uncomfortably. "See, about 18 months ago, you all got together in, I'm guessing, this very chamber, and decided that humanity was too aggressive, too unpredictable, too dangerous to be allowed to continue existing. Which, fair enough, we did blow up that Krellian trade station. In our defense, they were running a protection racket, but I digress." She stood up, began pacing like a professor delivering a lecture. "So you formed your little coalition. 67 species, if I'm counting correctly. Combined your fleets. Planned this absolutely brilliant military operation. You were going to hit Earth and every major human colony simultaneously. Overwhelming force. Decisive strike. Quick, clean, efficient extinction event." Claxthor's mandibles clicked nervously. It seemed reasonable at the time. "Oh, it was adorable," Vera continued. "Really. The planning alone must have taken months. The coordination between 67 different species with different tactics, different weapon systems, different command structures. I bet the logistics paperwork alone could fill this chamber." She stopped pacing, turned to face them directly. "There was just one tiny problem with your master plan. You based all your intelligence on the assumption that humans would respond like every other species you'd ever fought. That we'd have our fleets arranged in standard defensive formations. That we'd defend our major population centers. That we'd follow conventional military doctrine." The smile that crossed her face was not pleasant. "Newsflash, we don't do conventional." Bloopthar's tank bubbled anxiously. "But the reports. Earth's shields failed in the first hour. The orbital stations were destroyed. We monitored the communications. We saw the cities burning." "Oh, you saw cities burning all right," Vera agreed cheerfully. "Very observant. Gold star. What you didn't see was that we'd evacuated them 2 weeks before you arrived. Turns out, when you're coordinating 67 different species, operational security becomes what we in the human military call a hilarious joke. We knew you were coming before you'd even finished fueling your ships." She started counting off on her fingers. So while you were busy bombing empty cities and shooting at decoy installations, we were implementing what High Command called Operation Cockroach. Fitting name, really. See, we took one look at your fleet composition and thought, we can't win a stand-up fight. So we didn't try to. Instead, we scattered. Every colony ship, every deep space station, every research outpost, every military vessel, we just dispersed. Went dark. The colonies on Mars, Europa, Titan, already had underground habitats that went down 3 kilometers. We just sealed the doors and waited. The generation ships heading to Proxima Centauri, Alpha Centauri, Tau Ceti, turned around, went silent running, and headed for the outer dark. Vera's expression turned distant for a moment. I was stationed on the Beijing, a Dreadnought-class vessel assigned to Earth defense. When the order came through, we had 47,000 civilians aboard within 6 hours. Mostly kids and their parents. We ran. Jumped into the debris field of the Oort cloud and shut down everything except life support. Spent 8 months hiding among the ice and rock, listening to your coalition fleets declare victory, watching them celebrate wiping us out. She refocused on the senators. You thought you'd eliminated humanity. You found some bodies, saw some destruction, filed your reports, and went home to celebrate. What you didn't account for was the one thing that defines humans more than anything else. She paused. We're too stubborn to die, and too spiteful to let you get away with trying. The chamber erupted into chaos. Senators were suddenly very interested in examining their data pads, the ceiling, their own appendages, anything to avoid making eye contact with the very much not extinct human currently staring them down. Senator Claxthor was the first to attempt damage control, which was his first mistake of the day. His second mistake was opening his mouth. Captain Chen, I think there's been a terrible misunderstanding. The intelligence we received suggested that humanity had already suffered catastrophic casualties. We were simply formalizing the inevitable. Vera's eyebrow rose so high it nearly achieved orbit. Oh, a misunderstanding. Right. So you accidentally assembled the largest military fleet in galactic history, accidentally coordinated a simultaneous strike on every human settlement, and accidentally tried to wipe us out. That's your story? A Gloraxian senator stood up, their translation unit crackling with desperation. We genuinely believed we were acting in the galaxy's best interest. Humanity's aggressive expansion was concerning many species. We thought, perhaps, you would prefer a quick end to a slow decline? The silence that followed could have frozen helium. Let me get this straight, Vera said slowly, dangerously. You thought we'd want to be extinct? You thought we'd appreciate the genocide? Should I be sending you a thank you card? Maybe some flowers for your trouble? The paperwork was already filed, squeaked a small, mouse-like senator from the back. The bureaucratic procedures had been initiated. It would have been so much hassle to reverse everything. Vera stared at him for a long moment. You tried to justify genocide with filing deadlines. That's a new low, and I've seen some truly impressive lows. Blupthar pulsed an alarming shade of chartreuse. Captain, please understand, the decision was made by committee. No single species can be held responsible. It was a collective action, a democratic process. Oh, wonderful. Vera clapped her hands together mockingly. You democratically voted to commit genocide. That makes it so much better. I'm sure that defense will hold up great at the War Crimes Tribunal. War Crimes Tribunal? Several senators spoke at once, their translators creating a cacophony of panic. Did I stutter? Vera tilted her head. Oh, wait. You probably think you're still in charge here. That's cute. She tapped her wrist calm, and a holographic display sprang to life in the center of the chamber, showing the space surrounding the Senate Station. 300 warships of human design hung in the void, weapons hot, shields up, but these weren't the sleek dreadnoughts from before the war. These were something else entirely. Patchwork vessels built from salvaged alien tech, bristling with weapon systems that shouldn't exist, running on reactor designs that violated at least 15 galactic safety regulations. "Meet the Terran remnant fleet," Vera said conversationally. "We've had 18 months with nothing to do but survive, salvage your abandoned equipment, and get really, really creative with weapons design. Turns out, when you're already extinct, you stop worrying about safety regulations." A Krellian senator made a sound like a tea kettle achieving consciousness. "We've also had a lot of time to think about appropriate consequences for attempted genocide," Vera continued. "We've workshopped several options. My personal favorite involved turning this station into a very expensive and briefly luminous cloud of expanding plasma. But Command insisted we try diplomacy first." She smiled, and it wasn't reassuring. "So here I am. Being diplomatic." "You're welcome." Vera walked slowly around the holographic display, letting the senators get a good long look at what humanity had become in their absence from the galactic stage. "Let me give you the technical details, since I know you all love your data," she said, gesturing to one of the larger vessels. "That beauty there? That's the Spite." "Yes, we named her that. She's built from the hollowed-out hull of a Krellian supercarrier that you left drifting near Titan. We gutted her, installed 7 human-designed fusion cores that run about 300% hotter than your safety standards allow, and mounted enough railguns on her hull to qualify as a small asteroid belt." She pointed to another ship, this one looking like it had been assembled by a committee of mad engineers working in the dark. "The Nevermind is our favorite. Started life as a mining vessel. Now she's equipped with what we're calling creative weapon systems. Turns out, when you strap FTL drives to 100-ton tungsten rods and point them at planets, physics gets really interesting really fast. We haven't tested it on an inhabited world yet. The emphasis there is on yet." The color was draining from Blupthar's tank. Several species didn't have the biological capability to go pale, but they were managing to convey the concept through sheer force of terror. "And those 12 vessels that look like someone welded 5 different ship classes together while heavily intoxicated?" Vera's grin widened. "Those are our mobile factories. We've been building more ships. Lots more ships. Turns out, all those asteroid fields you thought were worthless? Full of useful materials when you're motivated." Senator Tkora found her voice, though it cracked like thin ice. "How many ships do you have?" "Enough," Vera replied simply. "But here's the really fun part. Remember how you destroyed Earth? Our homeworld? The planet with all our historical sites, our cultures, billions of years of evolutionary history? Yeah, that really pissed us off. And when humans get angry, we get productive." She pulled up another display, this one showing what appeared to be construction yards hidden in asteroid fields, on barren moons, in the depths of gas giants. "We've spent 18 months doing nothing but building, planning, and preparing. No politics to slow us down. No debates about budgets or environmental impact. Just pure, focused, industrial-scale preparation for what comes next. It's amazing what you can accomplish when you're already dead and have nothing left to lose." The chamber had gone completely silent except for the ambient hum of life support systems and someone's labored breathing apparatus. "So here's how this works," Vera said, her tone shifting from casual to businesslike. "You have 2 options. There's the easy way, and there's the human way." She held up one finger. "The easy way, you accept full responsibility for attempted genocide. You pay reparations, significant reparations, enough to rebuild our worlds and compensate our losses. You sign treaties that give humanity absolute veto power on the Galactic Council. You turn over every individual who planned, authorized, or participated in the attack for trial under human jurisdiction. You formally apologize, and I mean really apologize, full broadcast across every communication channel in the galaxy. And you do all of this in the next 72 hours. Several senators started to object, but Vera held up her other hand, and something in her expression made them shut up immediately. Or there's the human way. She leaned forward, her voice dropping to something quiet and infinitely more dangerous. The human way is where we stop being diplomatic. Where we remember that we're the species that conquered our own planet before we left it. That turned deserts into cities and tamed forces of nature for breakfast. That looked at the food chain and decided we'd rather not participate, thanks. We're the species that split the atom just to see what would happen, then used it to boil water because efficiency. Her eyes swept across the chamber. The human way is where we take every single tactical lesson we learned from you trying to kill us, and we apply it. Everywhere. To everyone who participated. We've got lists. We've got coordinates. We've got plans detailed down to the minute. And we've got absolutely nothing to lose because you already took everything from us. She straightened up. The beautiful thing about being extinct is that you can't threaten us with consequences. We're already at rock bottom. We've already lost our homeworld. We've already buried billions of our people. You can't scare us because we're living in the worst-case scenario. But we can definitely scare you. Vera smiled that terrible smile again. So what's it going to be, senators? The easy way, or the human way? Choose quickly. My people are taking bets, and I'd hate to disappoint them. The capitulation was so fast it would have been funny if it weren't so pathetic. Blupthar's tank bubbled frantically. The easy way. We choose the easy way. Definitely the easy way. Smart choice, Vera said, pulling out a data pad that looked like it had been through a war. Probably because it had. Here are the terms, non-negotiable, already drafted, just waiting for your signatures. She began reading, her voice taking on the tone of someone ordering lunch. Point 1. Full public apology, broadcast simultaneously across every communication network in the galaxy, admitting to attempted genocide and taking complete responsibility. This apology will be delivered by each species head of state personally. No delegates, no representatives. You screwed up, you own it. Claxthor's mandibles drooped. But the humiliation is the point, Vera finished. Moving on. Point 2, reparations totaling 47 trillion galactic credits, to be paid over the next 50 years. Yes, that's more than most of your GDP combined. You'll figure it out. Maybe hold a bake sale. Point 3, she continued, ignoring the collective groan, establishment of a new galactic holiday called Humanity Remembrance Day, though we're seriously considering renaming it the day we screwed up and learned better. It'll be celebrated annually. Mandatory observance. We're thinking interpretive dance performances about the importance of fact-checking before committing genocide. A Zeltharian senator, either incredibly brave or catastrophically stupid, stood up. This is outrageous. You cannot seriously expect sovereign species to submit to such degrading terms. We have our pride, our dignity. Vera didn't even look up from her data pad. Correction. You had your pride and dignity. You lost them when you tried to exterminate us and failed. Sit down, or I'll have the spite demonstrate what we did with your species' abandoned weapons technology. Spoiler alert, we made it better. The senator sat down so fast he nearly fell through his chair. Anyone else have objections? Vera asked pleasantly. The silence was deafening. Excellent. Sign here, here, and initial here. You have 1 hour. After that, we start doing things the fun way. 300 senators reached for their signing implements simultaneously. Vera walked toward the destroyed doorway, then paused and turned back one last time. Oh, and one more thing, she said, her voice carrying that edge of steel wrapped in velvet. If anyone in this chamber, or anywhere in the galaxy, ever gets the bright idea to try this again, remember this moment. Remember that you had overwhelming numerical superiority, perfect coordination, and complete surprise. And we still survived. Now imagine what we'll do if you give us a fair fight. She tapped her comm badge. This has been your friendly reminder that humans are the species that looked at apex predators and said, I want that as a pet. We're the ones who saw space, an infinite vacuum that wants us dead, and said, road trip. We invented persistence hunting, which is just a fancy way of saying we're too stubborn to let our prey rest until it dies of exhaustion. We literally outstubborned evolution itself. Her smile was pure predatory satisfaction. So sleep well tonight, senators. And remember, humanity doesn't do extinct. We do spite-fueled comeback tours. She gave them a casual salute that somehow conveyed maximum disrespect. Try not to schedule any more extinction parties without checking the guest of honor's pulse first. Bye now. And with that, Captain Verachin walked out of the Galactic Senate chamber, leaving 300 senators staring at a pile of documents that would reshape galactic politics for the next millennium. The signing began immediately. Nobody wanted to find out what happened after the 1-hour deadline. High Chancellor Bloopthar bubbled miserably to Claxthor. How did we not know they were still alive? Claxthor, already signing his 4th document, didn't look up. We're idiots. That's how. Outside the station, the human fleet waited patiently, each ship a testament to humanity's most defining characteristic, the absolute refusal to go quietly into any kind of night, good or otherwise. Turns out, killing humanity was easy, making it stick? That was the hard part.